Welcome, everyone. Welcome. This is Erika Hill, and this is our cybersecurity for nonprofits. My co-host organization is Morrison Mentors, and we have Doron Spleen, who's the executive director of that organization, here with us as well. Please, as you come in, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. So if you could just share your name, where you're from, and you can actually start posting questions now that you have with regards to cybersecurity. We want this conversation to be interactive. So we can ask questions in addition to the ones that I already have set for our panelists. So we'll just give it a few minutes to have everybody come in, get situated. And just so everybody knows, this webinar is being recorded. So if for some reason you have to hop off, or you know somebody else that wanted to make it but had a conflict, it will be made available on the Vision Street Research YouTube page, and that link will be sent out to everyone that has attended this. So you can feel free to share it with those folks. Just gonna give it a couple more minutes. I know sometimes people have challenges getting into Zoom, even though we all have now tried to adjust to a Zoom world, but I know technology can sometimes be a little bit of a pain. Or you could have been, had some sort of attack. Who knows? Crazy things happen every day. Learn people are very bored during the pandemic. So between cloning people's Instagram pages, there's a lot going on, which is why this conversation is very important, so you can understand, not only for your nonprofit, but even for your personal data, how to protect yourself, because every day there's some new scam or something coming out to try to attack your system and get access to your personal data. All right, so I'm gonna kick it off with to introduce our panelists. Again, my name is Erika Hill. I'm the principal of Vision Street Research. I am we're a for-profit organization in Baldwin, New York. We serve minority and women business enterprises, government entities, as well as community-based organizations. Our key services are project management, market research, and community outreach. And I could not get off this webinar without saying that the 2020 census is here. One of our biggest efforts right now around community outreach is making sure that everyone, and I mean everyone, is counted in the 2020 census. And that's another reason why this topic is really important to me also, to make sure people feel comfortable if they're going to their local nonprofits to complete the census, that they can feel comfortable that their data will be protected and there'll be no types of breaches. Today, who I have on our panel, I'm gonna start with my co-host for the event, which is Doron Spleen from Morrison Mentors. Morrison Mentors is an organization, it's a nonprofit based in Hempstead, but their reach goes beyond Hempstead in terms of the way they're able to serve clients and work with students, but they do work with students from age elementary school onward, training them in STEAM. And I'm really excited because they have an awesome resource in terms of desktop support, which I think pairs really nicely with the discussion we're about to have today about cybersecurity and how you can keep your data and networks safe. So thank you, Doron, for being here. Doron is a proud Hempstead native, so I know for anybody that loves Hempstead, because they're all out there, I'm proud Hempstead native, so thank you for being here. Our featured speaker for today and panelist is Trey Anders. He is the founder and owner of CyberAmp. It is a organization that trains not only young people, but even adults that are interested in making transitions into the technology field on all things cybersecurity. So he could take you from nuts and bolts, so getting your certification in cybersecurity, even if you have zero experience, you can still become a cybersecurity expert. After the certification is over, he could take you through how to get your first job in cybersecurity. So walking you through how to craft your resume, the cover letter, and even walking you through what your LinkedIn should look like, as well as preparing for technical interviews, which is something for those in technology, which is really important and can kind of make or break the opportunity. So Trey, we're so happy to have you here. Trey is with us from Atlanta. Atlanta is where he is joining us. So we're happy to have you. So cybersecurity. I mean, we have a lot going on between COVID, civil unrest. People are posting all types of stuff. I just mentioned. I mean, I've seen a pastor, local elected official. Instagram accounts have been hacked, right? Like I'm getting requests every day from a cloned account, and that used to be the thing on Facebook, right? You find out that your Facebook friend is now friending you again, and you're trying to figure out why. Why are you friending me again? We're already friends, only to find out it's a hacker who, once you accept, hits you in your DM and says, "Can I get some money?" Because you think it's the person. So there's an end game. So, I talked about the census. So we're a little more than 30 days from the 2020 census, right? We found out that the 2020 census now is ending September 30th in terms of folks being able to respond either online, through my2020census.gov, over the phone, 844-330-2020, or they're now people, door knockers as they're called, but they're technically called enumerators that are now out knocking on the doors, trying to get people to complete it. Now, for a lot of people, somebody coming to their door is not going to work. It wasn't going to work before COVID. And now I don't care if you have on a mask. I don't know you. I don't know where you've been. I don't know, I don't know. So a lot of times we find that the nonprofits are the trusted resources in the community, like Morrison Mentors, right? That has a location, and some of these other local nonprofits. But then the concern also becomes, well, is their network safe? Because I see on the census website, it says the Census Bureau technology is protected by strong authentication and authorization methods and is fully locked down so that it can only be accessed by fully vetted individuals who are trained in data and cybersecurity. I don't know what that means. I just know hackers are pretty vicious right now. So can you kind of help break down exactly what that means? And what does that mean for somebody who's walking into like a Morrison Mentors to fill out the census? Like, how do I know that my data, that sounds pretty. I don't know what lockdown means. Quite
right. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this opportunity to speak on cybersecurity. So I really appreciate the opportunity. So what does it mean when the government says, or the Census Bureau says, that their systems are locked down? That can mean a host of things. The main thing that they're saying is that their websites have some type of security to verify and make sure that your data is secure. And that can mean a host of things, right? When I like to use the analogy, just imagine if you're going to Starbucks or some type of fast food restaurant and they offer free Wi-Fi. The real question is, should you trust that network? If it's an official sign that's saying that here's how you connect to the Starbucks network, or here's how you connect to the McDonald's or fast food restaurant network, or you go to the cash register and they give you the Wi-Fi password, you probably can trust that network. Okay. What you can't trust if someone just, it's just a network that says free coffee, right? The free coffee network is probably not your best friend. So I would say when you go onto these nonprofit organizations, get that information directly from the provider, or get that information directly from the location itself. Hey, what is the name of your network? That network you probably can trust with your information. And then the second thing, when it says it's locked down, well, all cybersecurity professionals let you know right off the bat, like, no network is 100% secure, but you can use things to mitigate your risk. And one of the things that you can do to mitigate your risk is, if there's a little lock on your web browser, that lets you know that there's some type of encryption involved, right? So even if it is a network that you don't fully trust, if you can trust the source that you're going to, that lends itself to making sure that your data is secure.
Gotcha. All right, that's good to know exactly what lockdown means. I thought that was interesting language to be used on the census website about data. So Doron, as a local nonprofit, I mean, Trey kind of alluded to some things that I guess a resident or a client could potentially ask. But what protections or what precautions have you guys taken in general, just because of the population you're dealing with, to kind of protect their sensitive information and when they're, maybe going online for different things.
Definitely. So I'd like to also thank you for giving Morrison Mentors this opportunity, as well as myself, to be here, to be here with Trey and also talk about cybersecurity. So thank you for that. When it comes to because we really work with two different populations, right? We work with our on-site population that do come in and they're going to be using our laptops, to access sensitive information or just their coursework. We do monitor our networks. Okay. Right? We're paying attention to, the packets that are coming in and out. Just paying attention to the network is really, the most important thing. And as professionals, we know what to look for. We're looking for it already. So, it's like Trey said, nothing is really locked down.
Right.
We really have to monitor it and look out for it. Now with our mobile audience, where we're going into different communities and we're traveling, with our laptops, we're traveling with our internet,
right.
Wi-Fi, we also lock down our laptops as well as monitor the network too. And the reason why we do that is it's also a lesson for some of our kids who are interested in network administration, right? So we'll have a computer plugged into our Wi-Fi that's just monitoring, the different packets going back and forth. Not every kid really pays attention to it, but right. Those who do, we know, all right, let's tell them a little bit more. Let's see if, network administration is something they'll be really interested in. So, we use it, as a learning lesson too, so.
Well, that's awesome that you're teaching them that now, because I think what Trey said about like the place that just says hot coffee, because I had to learn it also of like, yeah, I'm out on my laptop and it's like, oh, we have Wi-Fi. And it's just like, do I want to connect to your network? Because I don't know like what that may expose me to. And I think especially in, low-income communities, if you don't have Wi-Fi in your home potentially, right? Maybe there's not a Morrison Mentors or a place to go. Those places that say the hot coffee may seem like a viable option and seem safe because you just need Wi-Fi, right? Like I need Wi-Fi to, I don't know, submit an application. I need Wi-Fi to do something really quick. And they say they have Wi-Fi. What's the harm? And then lo and behold, now somebody's gotten into, stuff on your phone or, on your device because you just weren't thinking about what that means when you connect to someone's Wi-Fi.
And we also have to be aware of what we're doing on the Wi-Fi. Right? If we're doing, our taxes, you may not want to use certain Wi-Fi, you want to go into a secure location. So, but I mean, if you're just, goofing off and you're going on the internet and you want to go shopping or something, okay. But also remember that they can still hack your phone once you're on that same network. So you just have to be careful. And as people, we have to, really take security into our own hands as individuals.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I don't quote many presidents from the 80s, but one of our presidents said, trust but verify. I say don't trust and still verify, right? So don't trust the network and verify exactly where you're going, especially if you're clicking on any links, doing any shopping, or having, doing a personal, action online, like filing your taxes, something like that, filling out sensitive personal information, making sure that at that time that you're going to these networks, you're trusting that network that you're on, and you understand exactly the risk that you're putting yourself in. But I just want to say one quick thing here, just to kind of set the table a little bit better here, right? Like we talk about the technologies, we talk about the hacks and all those other things, right? But I think we just need to understand like the motivations behind why they do the things that they do. Because if you understand the motivations behind the criminals and the hacking, you have a better perspective of how you're becoming a target or why you could potentially be a target. And the motivation is quite simple, right? It's money, right? And you think, well, how are they taking my personal information and making money off of it? It's a whole underground network. The industry has coined the term crime as a service. And almost think of it as, like big business. They have people that go in and break into networks. They have people that go in to extract the data. And then they have people that actually monetize the data. And that monetizing of the data can be anything from, your name and your social security number, or credit card information, or even some of like your medical information, right? And you would think like, well, why would my medical information be relevant to an organization or a criminal organization? You know, prescription drugs, they selling prescription drugs on the black market. So they're able to commoditize your personal information and turn it into something, you know, that credit card is not that valuable, but what they buy with the credit card is very valuable. You know, your personal medical situation may not be that valuable, but they can turn around and get some type of high-end prescription drugs and sell it on the black market at a fraction of the price. So they're able to monetize your personal information. So you just need to kind of be aware of what exactly they're doing with your information.
That is so true and also so disturbing at the same time. There's like a whole other network that is
right.
Existing and preying off of hacking people. So that kind of leads me to the next question. So according to Kaseya.com, like back in April, actually, they listed some of like the top cybersecurity attacks. So the one that we always hear about is like phishing attacks, right? You're always getting emails. So they had like phishing attacks. They had remote worker endpoint security, cloud jacking, which is something that I wasn't familiar with that. IoT devices, so mobile malware, like inside threats. So for you, I guess, what are you seeing? Like, what are the most common ones you're seeing? And then, you know, how can people protect themselves?
Really, it's really just two. And I mean, all of those others up there are, I would say, are a fraction of just the first two. So close to 95, 99% of the breaches start off with some type of phishing attack or vulnerability in application, right? So when the security professionals tell you to update and don't use the same password, this is the reason why, right? So there are vulnerabilities associated with the application. So that's one side of it. But I think the one that's most relevant to the audience today around nonprofit is going to be email. Email is the lifeblood of all business communication. Email is the, you know, how we get things done inside of business today. And the bad guys know this, right? So you need to be able to understand exactly how do you put security around your email and what type of links are you clicking inside of the email box, right? Again, don't trust and still verify, right? Somebody's talking about wiring you some money. Do you actually know this person? And if you do know this person, have they had a conversation about you wiring them some money? You know, I think for nonprofits, especially nonprofit that has a large donor base, if you break that trust with your donor base, that can be very detrimental to your organization. And, you know, pretty much most small organizations can't come back, you know, once they've had that type of breach. Small organizations and nonprofit, you know, the average breach costs them close to $250,000, right? And that's just to get back, you know, from that breach, let alone the reputation that they've lost in their community. So I would say having email security and understanding and having a policy around your email is probably the most important thing, and it's going to get you 80% there for securing your organization. And then the next thing is, like I said, will be, you know, just the updates, right? Updates and malware protection. You have to do the updates. The bad guys are looking for vulnerable systems. They're scanning your networks constantly. So you have to be aware of those things. So those two pieces account for close to, like I said, 90 to 99% of the breaches out there.
Since you said that, are there some examples of organizations that have done, I guess, like what you consider to be like a really good job as it relates to like policies around email security? That's part one. And then part two is, you know, when you Google if you're a novice, right, you're in this space, but if you're a novice and you're trying to identify like which malware and you don't know a Morrison Mentors, for instance, that has some experts, how do you know which one? I mean, they're also advertising to you. Once you Google malware, all these things pop up. Like, how does somebody decipher like what is a good option for their particular system?
Right. Yeah. So great question. I would say for most nonprofits, if, you know, especially if they're not in the enterprise or commercial space, kind of like the, you know, under 100 employees or something to that nature, their biggest bang for the buck is to kind of go with the traditional antivirus vendors, because they cover a spectrum of technologies that allow you to protect your organization. And then as far as policy around phishing, you definitely have to come up with a policy. That'll be the first thing, just to actually have a policy, right? You know, how do you address sensitive information coming via email, right? A lot of organizations allow sensitive information being sent via email. I would say that's probably the number one thing that you should stop immediately.
Okay.
And look at maybe having a platform that houses strictly your security, your personal information, especially when it's associated with employee information or donor information, or maybe even more personal information. So that's the bottom line, kind of separating it out email and understanding that email is for communication. Sending sensitive information, you may want to have a separate platform to send actual sensitive information.
Okay, I see. Because I was gonna ask. That's great that you said that. I was gonna ask that question, since some people, especially now, given social distancing, people are having to share, send documents and want to make sure it's secure. So Jennifer asked, do you have any recommendations on platforms that are safe to use? And then it says webmail providers that are safe. And I think, again, because of the COVID, if people were not set up to have, and I'm probably dating myself of knowing something, a VPN, which I happen to know what it is.
Right. Yeah. I got you on that. Yeah. So VPNs are pretty much dead now.
Right.
And the reason why, if you really think about it, you have a lot of these applications, Box, Dropbox, Office 365, Salesforce,
Right.
all of these social media, different applications, right? All of our data is now stored inside of these applications. The vendors themselves do a really good job of, for the most part, securing the data. Where the weaknesses comes in is at on your password and you authenticating to those environments, right? And the weak link, again, typically is your email inbox. As much as security we want to put around it, it's human nature to click on that link, and that clicking on that link allows them to access the rest of your data for your organization. So I would say that's probably the first thing. And then what will be safe in your environment, or what type of services you can put that'll be safe. I would say Gmail and Office 365 have a pretty good way of capturing the spam and all those other things, but it's really your perspective or your viewpoint of don't trust and verify, right? That's you're the first and last line of defense if you don't have an IT organization or a security team around you.
All right. So Doron, so for you, since your mobile team is going out and working with folks, what have you seen in terms of needing to provide some sort of support? Because I can imagine this becomes an issue in terms of people's systems being attacked and trying to figure out how quickly they can get it resolved, because obviously it can interfere with their ability to deliver services or operate business.
Definitely. So, just like Trey said, out of all of the different attacks and the list of, hacks that's happening out here, these threats, it really stems from, two different threats, right? So for us, when we go into locations and we're working with different office spaces, small office locations, we stress, when emails is very much the first way attackers get into, small office spaces, through emails. Sometimes it's an inside threat, it's one of those two kind of things that happen.
Right.
So we very much suggest, changing passwords, and they may seem very common, very typical, but they go such a long way, because a lot of people, when they work in a company and they come up with a password, they sometimes keep that password for 8 years, right? That password is sometimes linked to their own personal passwords. So usually if a hacker is really good, they'll just piggyback of, where you live, where you work, your emails, and just kind of follow that pattern. So we always suggest, changing your emails. Don't write your email down or your password down and put it under the keyboard. Like, don't do that. That's the first place, and then the mouse is the second place. So don't do that. So we just try to stress, the very basics of things, even though it may seem simple.
Right.
Pay attention to the URLs that you're redirected to, or you're going to. If you're trying to go to eBay, don't go to eHay. You're trying to go to Amazon, don't go to Amazon. Just kind of pay attention and don't just blindly click on certain things. Protect yourself. And, one of the services, just like, Trey said, we monitor very heavily. So by us, offering our desktop support services, we go into the office spaces. We also remote into different small offices, so we don't have to physically be there, but we're still able to monitor the machines, different packets that are coming in and out, and there's there's free antivirus software out there that we instruct our clients to use, and it's just a heads up for us. Right, we know that those antivirus softwares, because we're monitoring weekly and we'll have daily checks, it'll give us alert, hey, something's up here. And
Right.
that gives us enough time to go in. If we need to change passwords, we change passwords. If we're able to try to track where the threat is coming from, we do that as well. So just monitoring, that's the most important. Getting all the computers up to shape, up to usage, making sure that they're fast, they're protected, and then just monitor.
I got one other thing that a piece of technology or process that may be able to help a lot of organizations and individuals. Two-factor authentication, right? So you have your password, but then it syncs to your phone, right? So normally the bad guys don't have your cell phone. Normally, and then the way two-factor authentication works, right? So you have your password, so it's something and then you have your cell phone. It's normally something you have. But when you enable that security on these different services like Gmail or Office 365, it also is
especially
Amazon. Amazon, they do something with geolocation, right? So there's actually, if Erika logged into my account, it'll know that I'm not in New York. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, right? So it's going to say, hey, is this you? And I'm like, no, I'm not in New York.
Right.
I'm not on Long Island, right? I'm here in Atlanta. So it knows those things. So you would definitely want to enable two-factor authentication. Yes, is another piece that takes a little bit longer, but it really can help save an organization from a potential breach.
Definitely.
Great. Yeah, I just posted that in the chat. Jennifer says she has it, the two-factor authentication. I definitely see the value of it, exactly what you said, because obviously somebody pops up with something, as someone that's been a victim of identity theft personally, and having my Facebook account cloned, I think once or twice. I definitely see the value of it. And Juan said he has it as well. So it's good to see that more people are doing it. One of the things that came up as I was preparing for this discussion was this whole thing about cyber liability insurance, which never even heard of it. So I'm posing it kind of to you guys of like, to have or not to have, like, is this a thing? In my realm, having like EEO insurance is important as a small business, but I was not familiar with cyber liability insurance.
Yeah, I can speak on that a little bit here. I think you have to understand your risk to your organization, right? So risks, like any type of insurance, you need to be able to kind of calculate your risk, right? Your own personal life, right? You need to have car insurance, life insurance, health insurance, as an example, right?
Right.
Because of the breaches that are out there, the insurance companies have now come up with, cyber liability risks. And what you have to understand is that it's not saying that they're going to cover you for everything. They expect you to have processes and security controls in place.
Right.
And if you do have those things in place and have a breach, you can potentially be covered.
Okay.
Or you could pay a little bit of a higher premium and basically saying that, hey, I'll outsource the risk to another organization. And if it does happen, I'll just pay the premium and go from there.
Gotcha.
I think it's not an either or situation. I think it's an and situation. I think you have your policies, technologies, and insurances in place, right? And it's not going to be one of those things where an organization can say, something, I'm covered by cyber insurance, so now I don't have to worry. I can sleep well at night.
Right.
Again, you if you burn your reputation as in your organization or with your community, that's going to cause a lot more damage than the money that you may recoup from cyber insurance, right? So I think having that viewpoint that cyber insurance is a way to augment your risk or help reduce your total cost of a potential breach is something that organizations that may want to consider, but you still have to do the fundamentals, which is having policies and technologies in place.
Definitely. So for us and our clients, as a nonprofit organization, grassroots organization we're definitely growing, and that's something that we will consider, in the near future. However, that's not something that we're considering, for our organization. However, we have clients that we service that do have it, that do explore the option. So because, we're already providing the desktop support, we understand, the information. We understand, our client. We understand how valuable that information is to the client. So then we come in now as consultants and we find that vendor, that third party, where we can, speak the technical terms, understanding our client's needs. We can speak the technical terms, to make sure that they're getting the effective package. And then we just kind of monitor with them. So it's something that we are able to put in place. Eventually our kids will be able to sit in on those meetings, but it's something that we are able to offer as well. But it's really based on the information that you what type of information you have, how valuable, what third-party softwares are you using? Do you really need it? So we help our clients, figure out if they do need it. But, we strongly encourage it if you can afford it. And the information that you are, receiving or, sending out is valuable in that sense, personal information, then we'll definitely suggest that.
Gotcha. So kind of in that same vein, now more than ever, nonprofits, I mean, they already operate with pretty tight budgets. I feel like they've gotten definitely tighter. I mean, the country's broke, everybody, like, there's just no money. That's what you keep hearing. Like, oh, there's no money, there's no money, there's no money. There's always money, but there's no money.
We heard that when I guess there was money.
Right.
Because we've been hearing that for a while now. So
right. Like, there's no money, there's no money. Right. Right. And then there's also, if there is money, sometimes the money has to be spent on certain things, right? So there's certain, like, a lot of times you can't use a lot of the money to like help with staffing, right? So like people, and as someone that used to work at a United Way, when I went out with volunteers who made decisions about money, the first thing people would say on the evaluation was like, no. But I'm like, well, how do you expect them to serve the people if they can't pay people, like a reputable salary? Like, these are people in the community. So I feel like, because unlike other industries, I don't know if the nonprofit community has caught up enough with data stuff for there to be like actual grants, like money that's only for that. I'm sure there are some out there that understand the importance of it. But what I guess can, for both of you really, to give everyone a sense of like a price range of like what somebody would have to potentially spend to like secure their system, right? Like, you guys have talked about a lot of different things, but like, how do we?
Yeah, I can take that. I'll start off with this, right? Again, if you understand crime as a service, you already a target, and they're going to figure out how to make money off of you, right? So let's just start with that, right? Like, you have no security, somebody can figure out how to make money off of you, right? So and I hate to say it this way, but it's like, you can pay to get your security in place and pay to protect your organization, or you can pay the bad guys. But one way you absolutely will pay. And there's no shortcut around it, right? I would say security is not cheap, but it can be very effective. And then the other thing is, what is the price of your data to your organization? What is the price of your reputation inside of your organization? What is the price of doing business or supporting your community, right? Or the loss of those reputations inside of your inside of your communities. So I feel like we may want to turn it around a little bit and not focus strictly on the cost. Sometimes it's the cost of not doing things, like it's the opportunity cost, the growth of your organization, and then, like I said, the loss of your reputation. When you look at all of the different security controls around what's important inside of your network, or with your data, or the community that you're supporting, how do you really put a price tag on some of those things? And then absolutely you can, right? You can, let's just say if it's an organization that's supporting families and they have a budget of helping or support 1,000 families, right? Now, if you have a breach and all of that personal information is gone, or the donors list is out there on the dark web, and now they're being targeted by other organizations or other criminal organizations, what is that actually going to cost you? How many families are you going to be able to support if you lose funding? Right. So I think that's one of the ways that we just have to refocus the argument and look at the opportunity cost and possible downside risk for not doing something. Now that you have that framework and understanding what it could potentially cost your organization, what's the likelihood that it's going to happen, right? So it's two-part. Here's the cost, and then here's the risk that's associated with it. Now that we know the cost and the risk, we can make an informed decision about what your budget in cybersecurity should be.
Gotcha.
So just, and just to piggyback off of what Trey's saying, you have the cost and then you have the risk. But, organizations like ourselves and many others, we may calculate the cost and the risk, but we just don't have the money, right? So right there in between, you have different service providers that you can use when it comes to sensitive data. You can, piggyback, you can receive your donations through PayPal, right? Have PayPal handle that purchasing and that, that transaction of information, right? Because they have a whole entire system. They have a, department monitoring, going out and seeing what's going on. So there are different services as nonprofits that we can use in the interim until, we're, huge organizations now that, we can figure out, all right, cost, risk, how much is it? Let's move forward.
Okay, that makes a good point in terms of PayPal, and I hear both of you. I just know, Trey, from since nonprofits is one of the audiences that I also work with. When you're working with smaller nonprofits, understanding that's part of the reason why I'm doing this. Understanding how they even associate the risk. If it's just you and a couple of people, and you finally got a functioning network up, and your system's not crashing. And you're just trying to understand, if I need to figure out some incremental, so to Doron's point, what can I do incrementally? Because right now I don't have the money. I don't know, I don't have the money right now to invest in maybe the full suite of what we need. What are things?
Should be, what it probably should be.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess the very first thing is you need to understand what sensitive data that you are responsible for. What sensitive data that you're a custodian for, right? And now that you understand, okay, I have, let's just use an example. I have donor information with financial, personal information on it, right? You need to do everything you possibly can to put the best security controls that you can afford at that time, right? Because that's going to be the target for your organization, right? And then you just look at the spillover from there. What else could potentially happen? But as using that as an example, if I know that I have a donor list with personal financial information on it, right? I can't be sending that across email. I can't just be posting that on any other website, right? I can't be putting that in, some account with Dropbox somewhere, right? I need to be able to make sure that data, maybe one or two people in the office has that particular data and is located on this machine, and I can who has when the last time that information was accessed. Right. So you want to understand what the keys to the kingdom are and putting controls around it. And that's what really protects your organization.
Gotcha. So I'm going to see if anybody else in the audience has any other questions. But one of the things, and I kind of started with this, is social media. So as a result of the pandemic, both businesses and nonprofits have increased. People were present, and I would say they were more present possibly on Facebook. More folks have used Instagram as a platform because it allows you more visual displays. You can do obviously IG lives, and there's an audience that is now existing on Instagram that's a captive audience, and is a great way for engagement. With that being said, can you kind of discuss a little bit exactly how someone even hacks into your account, and what other ways can you protect yourself? Because like I said, this is now a daily thing with me getting requests from people's account that have been cloned. And I know people that have accepted them, and then the person's asking them for money, and they're like, what? Who? And they think it's the person, or then they're confused. So what protections, if any, are there for folks that are now on?
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely can do certain things and have those controls around. Again, taking it back to the top, why are they cloning your account? Right? What's the purpose? What's the end goal of them cloning your account? That'd be the first thing, right? So I want to know it from a target, right? If I'm working with a financial institution or I'm connected to someone that has some political, leanings one way or the other, or I'm trying to get influence, I may be, specifically targeted to connect to someone else. That could potentially be the first thing. But a lot of times, the bad guys have automated their attacks. And what do I mean by that? Like, there's malware, there's software out there that's just doing all kinds of craziness where they're just looking for weaknesses in the environment. And from there, they can monetize. So it's almost, think of it as a deep sea hauler where it's going through and just kind of dredging the sea and it's trying to catch everything in the sea, right? All kinds of the fish. And once they get on the boat, then they can separate it out, right? So think of the malware or the software that's out there. It's just kind of sweeping the internet, trying to collect as much as possible. And then the bad guys say, okay, well, what can we make out of this, right? So a lot of times those attacks that's cloning accounts, that was just a weak password, right? So here two-factor authentication came up, right? Or if you're on a targeted attack, what can you do to mitigate those target attacks? Again, strong passwords, update your systems, limit your exposure.
Great point. So you guys have both mentioned a couple of different products, or systems. So I know Doron mentioned PayPal. You were talking about Gmail and 365. Again, for the novice, can you, now people are trying to figure out what other things they could put on their systems. Can you name some of, you said traditional, but I mean, not everybody knows what that means. So like, I know I've heard of obviously like McAfee, but what are some of these traditional software systems that people can use?
Right.
Put on their system.
So I guess the very first thing I would say, once we identified the data inside of your environment, right? And the database that has all the secure information, what's your policy before we even get to the technology? I think a lot of times as individuals, we want to jump to the technology, but a lot of time policies can do a lot, right? If only one system has access to the secure data and two people in the office has that information and they have to do two-factor authentication, do you necessarily need all of these other security controls around that organization may have? So that'll be the first thing. Where's the sensitive data? The second thing is, now that we have a policy in place and we have a process in place, now we can start talking about the tools, because we have a policy, place, cost, risk. We can start having a better understanding of where cybersecurity plays and how it can be relevant inside of the organization. And then we can have a budget discussion around it. So when I say traditional tools or traditional cybersecurity tools, I'm thinking about the bigger brand names, the Norton, the McAfee's. And the reason that I'm naming those two, one, they tend not to be the cheapest in the market, but not the most expensive. And it's something about having herd immunity with all the other people in that large install base. You're seeing they get a chance to see so many different systems being compromised in so many different ways. You have a way of protecting your organization because they're just seeing it from so many different places. So that's why I say go with possibly some of the bigger brand names. But I think using having an audit or having a professional like Doron come in and just having an advisory capacity will go a long way as well, right? So you don't know what you don't know. That'll be the first thing.
Right.
The data that you do know, you need to have a discussion around that with an expert.
Definitely. And, there are, of course we recommend, you can go with the paying software, right? You have the McAfee that you can go with. I believe Micro Center has their own brand that they sell as well. So there are those 1-year subscriptions that you can, pay for, the 3-year protection. But when we go in as well, we have to offer all different types of solutions. So we do offer free solutions too that they can go on and download. It's not the best, but it will do the job. But remember, you have to do your job too. So make sure you're running your tests every day. You have softwares like AVG. You have CC Cleaner. Those are just the beginner, malware, virus protection, or virus detection protection programs. That's usually where we get our kids started, because then that'll let us know if we need to reformat the system to wipe it to bring it back to the factory model.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's also a learning experience, but, monitoring is everything. Having someone to monitor your systems if you can, or even if you see alert, if you see an alert pop up on your machine, remember your laptop is now really your wallet, right? Just like your phone. Everybody's storing their passwords. I'm sure everybody has a credit card stored somewhere on their laptop, right? You can make purchases through it. So, just being safe with it, and, doing the best you can, so like I said, there are, free software that you can, use in the interim, maybe, for us, we'll just use it to see if it can detect any new viruses that are out there that we may not know about, or, maybe they didn't update. So it's just being on top of things, being proactive than reactive, because, reacting to a threat, it's not fun. It's not.
Yeah, that is my go-to saying, is proactive, reactive, and then ultimately predictive. And I would say most organizations are in a very much reactive mode, but it only takes, it may take a weekend or a week to understand where you're vulnerable at.
Right.
And it's really not a heavy lift, right? It's almost like an audit of your environment. You may sit down and do your financials with a CPA. You may sit down with someone such as Doron here and just have a discussion and say, hey, this is what I'm facing. This is the type of risk. This is the type of data that I have. Where can I get the biggest bang for my buck? And he may go in like, okay, you can't afford the high end CrowdStrike and all of these enterprise solutions at this time. You need to focus on AVG. Okay, great. We got AVG this quarter. We're budget for Norton the next quarter, and then we'll get a managed service provider in year 3 or year 2 from now when our budget turns around and we have additional funding, right? So I think it's just one of those things, like he said, if you're reactive, you're already going to lose the fight, right? If you don't know where your data is, or the bad guys have a better understanding of your environment more than you can't protect. Just imagine a burglar in your house and he knows your layout better than you. Like, you'll never be able to catch him, right?
Right.
Out in the closet, you're like, oh, I didn't even know this closet was here, right? Like you have to understand your layout of your land and where your data is and where those vulnerabilities and risks inside of your organization.
Well, I appreciate it. My final wrap-up question is just because I just know that their vulnerable population are seniors. Seniors, seniors are just under attack. I've seen personally, my mother has been attacked multiple times despite my urging of things not to do. But I also know there's a lot of nonprofits that work with seniors, right? So even if they're not in their place, like understanding kind of why they're a target, right? And I know it normally starts with the phone, and like it's a combination between like the phone and the email. So like somebody sends you an email and says like, oh, your Apple Pay. This was the one. Your Apple Pay has been attacked. Okay, so that's Apple, right? And we all know that Apple is Apple, right? Apple's typically not associated with too many other organizations. Somebody calls and says, log into your Amazon. This is a real story. Log into your Amazon account. What does Apple have to do with Amazon? Right? But like you're a frazzled senior, somebody calls you on the phone, you're not really putting it together. And now you've logged into your Amazon account. And like Doron says, like the whole two-factor, like your credit card information is stored in Amazon. If you use Amazon, like they have, you may have a couple of credit cards, you may have a link to your bank account. And now suddenly this person is now on the phone for 2 hours. It's 2 different people going back and forth. It's starting not to make sense, but they now hacked your system and proceeded to transfer money out of a bank account.
Yeah, there's so many different places I can go with that, but I'll just keep it simple. We have to protect our seniors, right?
Yes.
And again, they're not digital natives, so that'll be the first thing. They just, that's not the world that they grew up in. They don't understand all the nuances of how things are connected together.
Right.
So I just think that organizations that have a large seniors community, maybe they do some type of awareness training just to kind of help them understand, how they can potentially be a victim of these types of attacks. That'll be the very first thing, right? You're working with your at-risk population, you have to, you know, educate them. And then that goes for the youth too, right? You know, a lot of the, you know, 10-year-old, 13-year-old, you know, they're online and they're not understanding all the risks that it can potentially be with online activities. So I would say let's as an organization, as professionals, we kind of have to help and educate the more vulnerable members of our society, our digital society and our digital communities. That'd be the first thing. And then the second thing, again, if we had two-factor authentication involved, of like, hey, we want to do a transfer, that person on the other end of the phone, 9 times out of 10 is not in the same, you know, zip code that the attack is coming from, right? Normally it's China, India, and, you know, Nigeria are kind of the hot spots for a lot of the fraudulent activities that are out there. So if you have that two-factor authentication, maybe that's something that a nonprofit puts out with their senior community and show them how to enable that, as an example, right? And it doesn't necessarily take a lot to do it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a complicated process. Like you said, everyone has a cell phone. The cell phone to send you a text, is this you? You click yes, you click no. I mean, it's really just simple. And I would say the last thing is, we may get on our seniors a little bit about not them being digital native, but somehow they figure out how to send emoji text. So, you know, maybe we're underestimating them a little bit there.
Doron, what about for you? What are your thoughts?
I mean, the truth of the matter is, you know, as time goes on, all these processes are going to be sophisticated, right? And at some point, we're going to be seniors, and the systems are going to be over sophisticated for us, right?
Right.
So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, it's really about, you know, educating, but not only educating, but assisting, right? And I guess this is where our plug is, right?
Of course.
But, you know, we do, you know, we go into different communities. You know, we have been, you know, trying to get into nursing home community, you know, say the Bristol or Mayfield or, you know, just local community, you know, nursing homes in our community, where we can begin working with our seniors, helping them to Skype with their families, right? Being able to send emails. When they have that trusted individual, you know, that comes once a week, you know, and of course we're training our, you know, our college students, our high school students, as well as our post-grad, you know, we're training them on, you know, how to interact, right? They're building their social skills, right? But now the senior has somebody that they can, you know, turn to and say, hey, take a look at this email. It seems kind of odd. You know, I may not know the sophistications of the systems and how they're scamming now, but give this a read. Does this sound right? You know, and at that point now attention can be brought to it. So, you know, systems, you know, it's only going to get more sophisticated as time goes. As we get lazy with remembering, you know, passwords, and, you know, we get lazy with wanting to walk around with credit cards, you know, it's all going to be cyber. So, you know, bringing them to speed, assisting them, and just looking out for them. You know, and that's what we try to do as mentors, is, you know, look out for the community.
Oh, well, I have one other piece of technology to recommend: a password manager. You know, password manager can go a long ways in helping an organization manage all of those passwords, manage all of those accounts, and not create that same password that's, you know, some combination of your cat name and someone's birthday, right? So password protection, and just to piggyback on what he was saying, as far as educating our seniors and being that go-to person. You know, I'm definitely tech support for a lot of people in my family, and I'm sure he can attest to that, right?
It never ends. It's the
and it truly never ends. But one of the things that I realized, if I enable them through education and help them understand the process, and basically say, again, don't trust anything online. Right. You go a long way. So don't trust and still verify. The don't trust is, I'm not going to click on this link and let me call, call Erika, let me call Doron.
Well, thank you again to both of you, gentlemen, for joining me today for this discussion. I hope for those who joined us on this Zoom that you found it helpful. As I said at the beginning, this session is being recorded and will be sent out to all attendees so that you'll be able to forward it. In the follow-up communication, there will also be links to their secure web pages so you can feel comfortable clicking on them. I'm not redirecting you to any. So if it does not show up and show IberAmp and Morrison Mentors, abort mission. Do not click on the page. You need to
check the domain. Make
yeah,
sure
check the domain. Like if it does not go to that and you've been redirected, you need to call. You can email. Well, you can email me or message me, and we will get you to Doron to figure out what happened, because their websites are secure and it should go directly to their pages. But all jokes aside, I just really appreciate everybody joining us today. Again, we had Doron Spleen from Morrison Mentors, who again can provide some of the monitoring, the desktop support that we mentioned. He has a mobile team that can help. So if you're here locally on Long Island, or really beyond Long Island, his team is able to go out and be socially distant, obviously, and safe. But like, if you're in other states and things like that, where now traveling is a little less, obviously due to COVID, they can still remote into your system. They have, trusted and trained young people, as he has shared. Also, Trey Anders here with CyberAmp in Atlanta, Georgia, also has, same capacity to be able to provide advice. You can definitely easily connect with Trey on LinkedIn. That is his preferred platform for communication. So I would suggest that versus sending an email. Communicate with him on LinkedIn and, ask any questions. But both of these men are a great resource. And obviously I'm here to support in any way, to connect you with them and other folks that you may need to make sure that your data and your systems and your client and client material is all protected, because the last thing you need, like Trey said, is to have a breach, because it will cost you more money and more pain to resolve that than to protect yourself and protect your system. So have an amazing day, amazing rest of the week. And don't forget, 2020 census is still happening. So go to my2020census.gov and make sure that we all get counted. Thanks.
Thank you, Erika.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.